Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the North Bay Area Museum. My name is Scott Clark, and I want to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation that we're on today and continue to be. I'd also like to get things started because Cementation Canada and North America ingrained this in me about safety messages. If there is indeed something where we have to exit quickly, the exits are at the back. We'll have someone there that will guide you out if we have to exit quickly, and someone's going to have to carry Bill's steer. He's very slow moving, but he'll be up here in a minute. Welcome. Today's a very special day for not just North Bay, but the region and the local media landscape as well, because today is the day we launch where local voices can be heard. And that's the launch of the Echo Network, a community podcast network. And to get us started, and we're going to introduce you to some really fascinating people that we've teamed up with at the Story Studio Network out in Halifax. Through technology and everything that's happening nowadays, our team in Halifax is actually executing this on the ground. So Mike, Jamie, I'm not sure who's in charge, but let's roll the first video clip. So welcome to the North Bay Echo Network here in North Bay, and day one of something that we hope will continue for generations. And it's all about podcasting, and it's all about what's really revolutionized the media landscape in podcasting right across the globe. We know some big podcasts that a lot of people listen to on a daily basis. But how this started many months ago was about finding a local podcast. And I went to the team and I asked them, I said, how do you find a local podcast? And they looked at me kind of funny and they said, well, go on Spotify or iTunes and find a local podcast. I said, yeah, but once you get there, how do you find a local podcast? And then that's when we all started scratching our heads. And we said, what if we actually created a local network where we really focus on the voices of a community and tell the stories of a community? And really highlight those people that are storytellers and innovators in telling stories. You know, we chose this location for many different reasons, and one of the reasons is just outside. Someone who was a mentor to me for many years was Jack Burrows, and this is Jack Burrows Square just outside. And I'll never forget many years ago, and Rich Coffin will probably remember too, like when Jack said, you know what? We're going to buy the rail lands, and I have this vision that we're going to have parks, and we're going to have splash pads, and it's going to be beautiful. The heat he took during that time and the blowback he took during that time, history proved him right. Today, we couldn't afford any of this. We wouldn't be able to do any of this. But because he took the risk, he made the step forward. Today, Jack Burrows Square is the home to, I drive by and it's the car shows. It's the farmer's market. We've had Heritage Festival with concerts. We have basketball courts for the kids and splash pads and many different things. I see Harriet Madigan here as well, like the work that the Heritage Gardeners are doing and Living Fit and transforming this when the carousels started opening up and the community gathering. So my hope in all of this is that we have that same enthusiasm with the community. And what we want to do with the Echo Network is actually to amplify those voices. So if you have a podcast, you've always dreamed of being on a podcast, you want to do a podcast, we want to hear about it. And then we want to promote it. We want to tell everybody what you're doing and what's happening within a community. And we're super excited about that. So we're also just down the street from the Thompson family as well. So that's where their empire started, over at the Capitol Center. And it was really an idea of selling, and Peter Hobbs is here. He knows the story far better than me. He just told it to me a couple of weeks ago. The idea was, the Thompson family needed to sell more radios. So they started, let's put a radio station in to sell more radios. So, and that's how that empire started. Now, if we can get that far, I would love to own Bass Pro Shops. I believe the Thompson family owned the Bass Pro Shops. That would be really cool. I lose a lot of tackle on Lake Nipissing. So this is an exciting time for all of us. And what's really excited and what really put fuel into our engine was I've been following Aaron Trafford for a number of years. And Aaron, I won't jump on some of the things that you're going to talk about, Aaron, but Aaron's based out of Halifax. And it was, and she'll have the right numbers, but she came here to launch the Moose, which is now Jet. And it took off like crazy. And she moved on in her broadcasting career with CTV and Global, and she's been award winning, but she became this prolific writer that I've followed all the time. She was an incredible blogger and continues to do that. But also she was this real thought leader in how she and her team were approaching things, especially in the podcast world. And I kept following. And there was one day many months ago, I call her up like through LinkedIn, and I said, look, I'd love to tell you about this idea about creating a local network. And I'll never forget it. And we were talking about this just the other night. I'll never forget when I tell her the idea, all I was expecting her to say was, that's really good, Scott. Just take one of my programs. We'll teach you how to podcast, right? She said, when I told her sort of like, could we create a local network? She said, if you can do that, I'll leave my job today. And I said, let's do it. And that's what put fuel into the engine. And so I'd like to introduce you to Aaron Trafford, and welcome her. There's Aaron right there from Halifax and her amazing team. And Aaron, tell us a little bit about your journey. I wasn't trying to trample on your story, but tell us your journey from how North Bay became part of your life and how podcasting has changed the world and is changing the world, and what we're doing here.
So I mean, I think you said a lot. I said all of it, but 17 years ago, I distinctly remember driving up the highway on my way to move to North Bay to be on that team that launched the Moose. And it's so poetic for multiple reasons that we're launching Echo in North Bay here today. And, what I've learned over the last 17 years is that, media is constantly evolving, and the best evolutions that we've seen in the industry have been as a result of people who have been connected to the audiences, and whoever can get closer to that audience is really going to be the innovator. So when you came to me and said, let's do local podcasting, I thought there's no way to get closer to an audience than to be in that community and to cultivate community. And then the other thing I'll say, Scott, too, is, I love radio. I will be a radio nerd forever. And I am a champion for broadcast in Canada. And I see Echo truly evolving. And I think you do too, right? Like that was part of what created this big energy, is that Echo will evolve alongside radio. And I think we're going to help each other. In fact, I know we're going to help each other. And that's truly part of what I'm excited to see develop. And that's where, my story in North Bay continues. I didn't think this would happen, but I'm so thrilled. So thrilled.
Oh, it's amazing. And I really cherish and am grateful for the partnership that we have and what we're creating here. And we're committed. I know SSN is committed to, and they deal with big brands across the country. And Aaron said, I want to lean into this with my team. And I want to make sure that, those voices that we're about to amplify have all the resources available to them to make the best possible product that they have. And it's sort of their dream, what they want to do and what they want to evolve into. So that's exciting. Maybe, can you just touch on SSN just a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So just like how Echo started with a LinkedIn message. SSN started with a text message. So for those of you who are familiar with the Ontario broadcast market, my dad is Dave Trafford, who is a broadcast veteran in Toronto. I had to move all the way to Halifax to just kind of, create a little bit of distance. But anyway, he texted me April of 2021 when he was still hosting the weekend program on News Talk 1010 at the time. And on the side, as a little side hustle, he was producing podcasts because it's fun. But he texted me one day in April 2021, and it was just this, do you have a few minutes to chat? And the background is that, when I left the newsroom, I went into branded content. I became a consultant. I was working with some of the largest brands in Canada. I was having a blast. I really had figured out how to create content that audiences wanted, but that brands also really wanted to get involved with. So when he texted me, he said, listen, I've got more work than I can handle on the podcast side. Can you help me figure out how to make this go? So we had about a 90-minute conversation. And at the end of that, Story Studio Network was born. And within a week, we had our first paying clients. Within 3 months, we had convinced somehow, at the time she was my EA, Jamie Nickerson. She's now our COO. We convinced Jamie to jump in with us, even though we didn't really know what we were doing. A few months after that, Becky Coles, who's our senior producer, who has had a 20-year career producing live talk radio in Ontario. She joined us. So we and Mike Trutler, who's producing this program right now. I think Mike was with us from the very beginning. So now we have a team of 9 and we're growing every day. And our passion is to create a landscape where brands get to do cool stuff with audio first. So taking all of that brain trust and experience and applying it to Echo was just such a natural thing for us to do. Sorry, I could talk forever, guys. Can you tell? I could talk forever. Just like wind me up and let me go.
Yeah. Who decided to have 2 radio people or former radio people on the microphone? This thing will never end. So let's, Aaron, let's meet some of the team. Because when I say the team, the different community podcasts that you're about to hear. And the first person I'd like to introduce you to is Dave Dale. And if I go back even a little bit farther, we're talking about the relationship with SSN. It was during the election period where Dave was writing some different articles, and there was a fair bit of heat in the room. And I had never, over the years, I've always waved to Dave Dale. I was like, hi, Dave, but I didn't know him. So I wrote him an email and said, hey, Dave. I see you're podcasting, and I was wondering if you can have a coffee. I've always been intimidated by journalists because radio people, we generally can't write. Not you, Richard Coffin. You could write, but the people on the air, we couldn't write or spell. And he said, "Sure, let's have a coffee." And we really got passionate about creating a local network. And is this even possible, right? And so, Dave, I want to welcome you up here. Please make him feel welcome. Dave Dale, everybody. I wanted to partner with Dave right from the beginning, and it's been awesome. And Dave's going to get us started and tell us a little bit about what you're doing, Dave.
Thank you for coming to my stand-up comedy gig here. Actually, when I left the Nugget 5 years ago, this is what I envisioned with Small Town Times. But I learned I can't do it on my own, and so I made sure I got some partners and some people involved, and I knew that community is what's going to drive this. So you need to have relationships with people. You need vision. You need people that want to do good things. For an example, we picked today for the launch. Sam Harvey's here. He's involved with the Jordan's Bash for Life. I saw what they were doing and pulling community together. So I figured this is the time to do it right before a big community event, right? So that's what it's all about for me. Trying to pull people together, do some good things. Yes, I'll probably still piss off a few people. But from my experience in North Bay, people get over that. They work together, regardless of the divisions. Because if you want to get something done, you can't eliminate anybody, right? So I'm really happy to see all the different people here together, and I'm getting a little, my heart's beating right out of my chest. So I'm going to, I got to get off here. Thank you very much. You haven't seen anything yet. it's a great group of talented people, and they all want to do good things, and that's the story.
Thanks, Dave. So Dave is our director of content. So Dave's really, driving that forward, and he'll also be doing one of the things we've committed to is like, we're going to start with 3 times a week. We're going to be doing a newsletter. And just to be really clear, we're not doing news, right? We're just doing a snapshot of what's happening in the community. And what we want to do is we want to highlight some of the great work that journalists are doing. Stu Champagne's here, right? I see Richard Coffin. There's lots of great journalists that are here today. And we want to highlight what they're doing and amplify their voices and the great work they're doing, because the truth of the matter is, and there isn't any secret, they have less and less resources all the time. And I've worked with so many of these people over the years. We just want to support them and amplify their voices and help them. So amplifying what radio's doing, amplifying what, Cogeco and CTV and the other media are doing in the Nugget. And just on time, probably Greg Esterbrooks will be here in about 10 minutes. But we love him. Greg, we love you. We love you. So we're excited to do that. And Dave has been incredible from the word go. And part of my role will be to mend any fences, if you're watching out there, that Dave has burned down over the years. Let's see if I can build them back up again. Stop shaking your head. Okay. Now I want to introduce you to someone that I've been a fan of for many, many years. And when I reached out to Lisa Beauvin, and I said, hey, Lisa, would you consider doing a podcast with us? And it's our lead podcast for the network. And that podcast is called To North Bay with Love. And this podcast is really, it's like only Lisa can do. It's a breath of fresh air. It's great interviews. It's her natural ability to, communicate with people and show positive energy. And I can't wait for you to hear it because it just landed today during this launch. So please, Lisa Beauvin from To North Bay with Love, come up here.
Is this on? Oh, it is on. I thought you guys were just really loud. All right. I haven't had one of these in my hand in a long time. This microphone. So guys, I'm so excited to be here. I've been really involved in the theater and film industry in North Bay for a long time, and that's just one of the many, many things I love about this city. And then COVID hit, and everything went dark, of course. And once things started coming about again, things had kind of changed during COVID, and I thought, okay, I need something creative. I'm gonna die. And what's next? And so I just said, okay, universe, give it to me. What's next? And of course, when you ask, you shall receive. And my phone rang, and Scott called. And I couldn't believe it. And when he said what it was to host a podcast, I just immediately said yes. Or did I wait like 24 hours to text you? Like just to be like, maybe? No, I immediately jumped at it. And so then, of course, I'm telling people, friends and family, hey guys, I got this new venture. I'm going to be hosting a podcast. And the question I get all the time, and the first thing they always ask is, well, what's it about? And the first kind of time, I got that question, I was like, oh yeah, that's a very, very good question. What am I doing? What is this about? And the word that kept coming up for me was, well, it's about everything, but that's kind of a broad word, right? So Scott and I were talking about it yesterday a little bit, and he brought up the title, of course, of the show, To North Bay with Love. And that word love, like in life, encompasses everything. Right. So, when you're in love or when love is involved, you have everything from joy, excitement, passion, to, sadness, loss, grief. And those are all things that we're going to be exploring on this podcast. So it's unique that way. And it's just a really honest conversation with the many incredibly interesting people who live in this city, who have awesome stories. And I've had a blast so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And before I leave, I'm going to just say huge thank you to the team at Clark Communications at the end, because they've been awesome. Just in welcoming me to the team, I just kind of jumped in and feel immediately like one of them. So that's been great. And being from the theater world, I know that I only sound as good as I do because of everything that happens backstage, and behind the scenes, like Ben Kenobi, my producer. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone at Clark Communications because it's been fantastic. So I can't wait for more podcasting.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I'd also another show that we've been working on, and someone that I contacted early on, just concept, right? Like, who would be great? And I would love listening to Bill Steer or Backroads Bill, not only his articles, but when he was on CBC, but on Friday, we always hear you, right, Bill? Is it usually Fridays? Any day of the week. And there's all these great stories. And I remember actually being an exhibition that Bill had up here in this room, and photography that he'd taken across Northern Ontario, and these incredible stories of Northern Ontario and innovation and different things and mystery. And so I phoned him and I said, hey, Bill, you ever done a podcast? He says, nope. I said, do you want to do a podcast? He says, yep. And so we opened up the studio. He came in and we're going to be dropping a bunch of his podcasts starting today on the network. And we'll explain that in just a minute. But Backroads Bill Steer is here from the Ecology Center, and he was one of the first that jumped on board. Bill?
Thank you, Anna and Lisa. I think like and love is a good segue for me because I love Northern Ontario, and all my stories since 1988 have been about North Bay and Northern Ontario on the back roads and on the back waters. I should just say though that yes, it was an exhibition here about Backroads Bill. It was a real honor during COVID. But the real important thing is I just grew up down the street in the joke shop because my father started the joke shop right after the war. And I know lots of people know the joke shop. And they say, yeah, I grew up in the joke shop and all that soft pornography and all those things. And it's all true. It's all true. And that's why in my teaching career at Nipissing and Canada, I teach in costumes. I had all the costumes in the world at that time. Yes, I've got to do that because I talk with my hands. And so I teach through the emotional intelligence. And that's how I write. I think I write about the beauty of the land and the Indigenous relationship to the land. And again, those gems and secrets. I think in tourism, from all those vignettes I did in Northern Ontario travel, it's that our secrets are, and we don't do a good job of it. And this is why the podcast is going to be so important, to get people to those places on the backwaters and the back roads. And I really do think we need more information. And you started off by saying, Scott, this is another way to do it. And Anna underlined that about the nature of radio and visual and how it's going to come together. And this is going to come together in northbayecho.ca. I'm so excited, as you know, to have this opportunity with Ben, because Ben always asks me, and I'm teaching Ben as he asks me the questions, because here's my first advocate of getting him out on the back roads and the backwaters and things like that. And I thank you, and thank you, Scott. And I'll look forward to working with you with breathless anticipation. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. I've known Bill actually, I think, a number of years. I did not know that about the joke shop. Did everybody know that about Bill's? I did not know that about it was your dad that owned the joke shop? That's incredible.
People just wanted to spend money,
yeah,
and have fun, and all the Vic Virgili and Aaron Cresta.
Nobody can hear you. Well, nobody on the stream can hear you, though. Save the stories for the podcast, Bill. Save the story for the podcast. I think what, and I'll just ask one. I think your dad was one of the last members of the DIA that used to close. Wasn't it at a certain time every day didn't they close at like 11 o'clock? Nancy, do you remember that? On Wednesdays at 11 o'clock, they'd close for an hour, and all businesses used to do that at one time, but your dad was the last it was like very civilized. So Backroads Bill, great to have you here. Wait to hear his podcast. We have video with his podcast, and him and Ben do an incredible job. So one of the last people I want to introduce you to in some of the flagship shows that we have was like one of the first people we reached out to at the very beginning. It's like, how do you find a local podcast? And the one podcast that everybody talked about was The Frontline. And the Frontline's really well known in our community as a sports podcast. So I reached out right away to Courtney Kenny and Matt Sukram, and I said, "Hey guys, here's an idea." And they're always going like at 100 miles an hour, covering so many different things, from the Voodoos to the Lakers to the Battalion. They do so much in covering sport. And I asked if they would jump on board, and they said, "Yeah, let's do this." And so I'd like to welcome Matt Sukram and Courtney Kenny from Frontline Podcast, and just to say a couple of words about your show.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Matthew Sukram alongside Courtney Kenny. We run the Frontline. Did I do that? Whoops. Along with our good friends Ben Long and Derek Lindemann, and we wanted to join this network because we really see the value and the potential that what Scott is building here. And so we started with just having a team of guys that had an extensive background in broadcasting and journalism, and from that small group, we've built a really good group of about 9 of us that podcast and broadcast live hockey and all that kind of stuff. And this just made perfect sense as the next step into what we were hoping to eventually do with the Frontline when it first started. So this year we're continuing our coverage of local hockey, still doing live play-by-play of Powassan Voodoo's home games. We're continuing to build our relationship with the Nipissing Lakers, and that'll see more of their coaches and their athletes featured on our weekly podcast. Due to some recent changes of how things are being done at Memorial Gardens, we're having to pivot away from doing live coverage of Battalion games. While that is disappointing, we're refocusing our efforts to look at other ways to cover the team through a different lens, and we'll have more details on how we're going to do that pretty soon. We've also partnered with Source for Sports to present Athlete of the Week segment, which is for athletes from all ages. We want them to get involved, from our grassroots Timbits programs all the way to our college and university athletes, and we want to feature these athletes just as an Athlete of the Week. So for all the community coaches out there, get your nominations in. Those athletes will get a hat, a gift card from Source for Sports, and again, just be featured on our podcast and broadcast and our social media channels. So again, start making those nominations today, and I'll let Courtney say a few words about what's going on with the podcast itself.
Hey, everybody. It's a little overwhelming to be up here today, considering we started this podcast like many people did in the middle of COVID when we had nothing better to do. We thought, hey, 5 episodes and we'll be done. But here we are. We're over 100 episodes now with a really strong following, and up here talking in front of a lot of people. So that's basically how it started. We do have a new season which launched today, season 4. It features Voodoo's general manager, Chris Dawson, along with Tucker Shields. So that's out now for streaming, as of 22 minutes ago, as soon as it started. So with that being said, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I know I'm former radio guy, so I'll try and keep it sweet too here, Scott. But we're looking forward to contributing to local sports in any way, and being a voice for hockey and North Bay and more.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys. Glad you're part of it. So do I do that? Oh, that's it. Okay. Sorry, we have an AI camera that follows it. Okay, there. Thank you so much. And so we've really opened up Pandora's box here a little bit to have a lot of coverage and community voices. And so I do want to mention, I see Tim Lowe is here, recently retired teacher. Please use the 407 because that pays for their pension. Tim is going to focus on high school sports, and we're doing that show right now. It should be released in the very near future. We'll tell stories about the kids, right? And we're going to really lean into that and do more stories about that. I talked to Harriet Madigan yesterday about doing it like a community issue show. And of course, Harriet has tons of time on her hands. So we're figuring that out. We have to figure that out. But we want to do a business show, and there's shows that I don't even know about. And I want to point out Richard Fortin, who's here, that I don't know how many years ago you really pushed doing podcasts early, Richard. And so we really appreciate that you did that and started this whole ball rolling, and we really appreciate that. And I want to thank, some different brands that really came to us right away and said, we want to be part of what you're doing. And one of those brands is WagePoint. It's a national software company that provides services to small to medium-sized business, and they're incredible. And they said, we want to be part of the network and what you're doing. So thank you to WagePoint. Also services as well. So North Bay Hydro has North Bay Hydro Services, and they talk about, community power and investing in the community. And they were all on board about, how do we amplify these voices and how do we be part of it? And how do we associate our brand services with it as well? And I also want to mention Cogeco, because early on in this process, Cogeco said, we want to be part of what you're doing as well, because we could use that content as far as broadcasters go, and it would mean a lot to us if we could. So they came on board as one of our lead sponsors as well. So thank you, Joey, and the whole team from Cogeco that do great work in the community. And my hope in all of this is that we build these incredible relationships with Peter Hobbs and the Rogers team and CTV and all the work Jeff Elgie's doing. I've reached out. I'm going to meet with Jeff in another week or so, and he's been, if you follow Jeff Elgie and Village Media online, about the passion they have for the work they do within small communities. And I know Jeff's passion is to support local voices, and we want to support those voices as well. So with that being said, I want to introduce you to a couple of team members that are really important in all this. You've met Lisa Beauvin. You've met Dave Dale as well. I want you to introduce you to Ben Sargent, who is our lead producer. And Ben's a terrific young man who's a proud Canada College graduate. Took radio broadcasting, right? Radio broadcasting. Was in the film industry for a while, and then I rescued him from letting the government pay him during COVID. It was kind of nice, right? He's been unbelievable, and you'll get a chance to meet him. So, and our entire Clark Communications team, I won't go through all them, but thank you so much. So I'm going to wrap things up here, and I'm going to allow the media to do any interviews that they'd like to do and talk to whoever they like to talk to. And I want to thank our team SSN out in Halifax for all the work that they're doing and everything that we've been put together. I see someone in the back I just want to make mention. So I see Catherine Strang here as well. We're also doing interviews for autism services, and it's about having long form interviews so that we can really lean in and discuss, issues within the community that affect groups. And so that's just one example from One Kid's Place in some of the things that we're doing. So we'll break from there. I want to thank you all for showing up and being here. And we're so excited to launch this network, and we're so excited that your voice is going to be heard. So thank you all. Please go to northbayecho.ca. You can download the shows there. You can also get them through Spotify and iTunes. But support the network, get on board, sign up for the newsletter, and start receiving all that information right away. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I have unbelievable coffee and fresh baked goods from Twigs, who are incredible, because I forgot my wallet, and they still let me take it away. That's what's like being in a small town, right? They know where I live, so they know I'll be paying. So please enjoy that. Thank you all. Thank you, SSN. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great day. Thank you.